Tonight, you may have to travel a little further to eat at a popular fast food chain. KFC customers in McChesney Park, they were met with a letter saying the restaurant is closed for good.
Millions of Australians did not suddenly become harder to please. They figured out what was happening, and they left. No petition, no hashtag, no announcement. One by one, quietly, they just stopped showing up. The Sunday bucket stayed in the cupboard. The after-footy pizza never got ordered. The school holiday treat got replaced by something from Woolies for half the price. And the chains? They are still running the same playbook, raising prices, cutting corners, paying executives more than most Australians will earn in a lifetime. Blaming inflation, blaming the customer. 8 brands, names you grew up with, names you defended, and every single one of them is bleeding customers in numbers that have head office very nervous. We start with the one that will shock you most. Brand 1. McDonald's Australia. Think about the last time taking the kids to McDonald's felt like a treat. The happy meal, the playground, the specific smell of fries hitting you through the car window before you even parked. For an entire generation of Australian kids, that was not just fast food. That was a memory being made. Now think about what that same visit costs in 2026. McDonald's Australia operates roughly 1,500 locations across this country as a subsidiary of the Chicago-based parent corporation. The company collecting your money every time you tap your card is not an Australian business. It never was. But the story behind the menu boards is what Australian families are only now starting to piece together. In 2014, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation's investigative unit reported allegations against multiple McDonald's franchises, locations in Victoria, locations in Western Australia. A federal investigation into the temporary foreign worker program followed. The federal government suspended the food services sector's access to the program while that investigation ran. The story dominated Australian news for weeks. Then came 2023. McDonald's franchises in Israel publicly donated meals to the Israeli military. McDonald's Australia is not responsible for the actions of franchises in another country. But in a global brand, Australian consumers do not always make that distinction. Markets across the world reported a meaningful impact on sales. And through all of it, the price kept going up. The Big Mac that made sense in 2018 does not make sense in 2026. Not with Australian grocery prices where they are. Not when a home-cooked meal from Woolies costs less than a family combo. Not when the corporation running this operation posted billions in global revenue, while Australian families quietly started doing the maths. The playground is still there. The golden arches are still there. But the families who used to show up every Friday night have started spending that money somewhere else, one by one, without announcing it. If this is the kind of investigation you want more of, subscribe now. We are just getting started. The next chain spent years telling Australians it was one of them. The name is different. The ownership is not. Brand 2. Hungry Jack's. The name is Australian. The story behind it is not. Hungry Jack's has been part of the Australian landscape since 1971. The flame-grilled smell, the Whopper wrapper, the drive-thru that every Australian teenager has sat in at least once. It feels local. It feels familiar. It feels like ours. It is not exactly what it appears to be. Here is what the marketing does not tell you. Burger King, the American parent brand, attempted to enter Australia in the 1970s and discovered that the name Burger King was already trademarked here by a takeaway shop in Adelaide. So the chain launched under the name Hungry Jack's instead. The Australian trademark is held under license by Jack Cowan's Competitive Foods Australia, a private vehicle owned by one of Australia's wealthiest billionaires. The burger you are buying is a Burger King product built on a Burger King system, generating revenue that flows through a structure designed around a billionaire's balance sheet and an American multinational's global royalty model. That is the ownership reality behind the flame-grilled branding. And the pricing tells the same story every other chain on this list is telling. The Whopper combo that was a cheap weeknight option in 2015 is not a cheap weeknight option in 2026. The value menu has quietly crept upward year on year. Australian communities on Reddit and Whirlpool forums have documented the same experience across the country. Smaller portions, higher prices, a product that no longer matches the memory of what it used to be. Choice magazine has tracked fast food pricing across Australia consistently. The pattern at Hungry Jack's matches the pattern everywhere else on this list. The gap between what the brand promises and what lands on the tray has been widening for years. Australian families noticed. Australian young adults noticed, and they have been spending that money somewhere else. The flame grill is still running, but the customers who grew up on this food have started asking whether it is still worth it. The answer, for more and more Australians, is no. The next chain did not hide behind a different name. It sold Australians on heritage, on the recipe, on 11 herbs and spices. And it has been quietly changing the contents of that bucket ever since. Brand 3, KFC Australia. There is a specific smell that takes Australians straight back. 11 herbs and spices hitting the air the moment someone opens the box. The red and white bucket sitting in the middle of the table on a Sunday afternoon. The chicken that fed a family of 4 after church, after the game, after anything that called for a celebration that did not need to cost very much. That is what KFC sold Australians for decades. And Australians bought it. Completely. Now look at what that same bucket costs today. KFC Australia is owned by Yum Brands, a Louisville, Kentucky corporation that also owns Pizza Hut and Taco Bell. The same parent company, the same financial model, the same royalty extraction system running across 3 separate logos. A family feast that cost under $25 in 2018 now lands closer to $45 in 2026. That is not inflation. That is a deliberate margin decision made in a boardroom in Kentucky that Australian families are paying for every single time they walk through that door. And the bucket has changed. Australians across the country have documented it. Smaller pieces, more coating, less meat. The family feed that used to leave leftovers now barely covers the table. The ACCC has received consistent complaints about portion sizing and value for money across the fast food sector. KFC sits at the center of those conversations more than any other chicken chain in the country. The 11 herbs and spices are still in the recipe. That part is real heritage. But the chicken arriving in that bucket in 2026 is being produced under cost management pressures that the heritage marketing says nothing about. Yum Brands posted global revenues in the billions last year. The Australian family who used to make Sunday KFC a ritual is now standing in the supermarket aisle doing the maths. A whole roast chicken from Woolies. Sides from the deli. Change left over. The maths stopped working. And Australian families noticed before KFC's head office did. If you have not subscribed yet, do it now. What is coming next will surprise you. The next chain is not an American giant. It is private equity in a different disguise, and it has been running the same playbook on Australian franchisees for years. Brand 4, Subway, Australia. It was the healthy one. That was the whole pitch. Not fried, not processed. You picked the bread, picked the fillings, watched it being made right in front of you. Fresh, transparent, reasonable. For Australian workers and gym goers, Subway was the fast food option that did not feel like a compromise. That positioning did a lot of work for a very long time. Here is what changed. On the 30th of April 2024, Subway was sold. Not to another food company, not to someone with a vision for better sandwiches, to Rourke Capital, an Atlanta-based private equity firm that paid approximately $9.6 billion United States dollars for the privilege of owning your footlong. Look at what else Rourke Capital owns. Arby's, Buffalo Wild Wings, Sonic Drive-In, Jimmy John's, dozens of other chains. Same firm, same playbook, different logos above the door. That is who is collecting the margin every time you order a sub. And the product itself has questions attached to it. In 2017, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation ran a genetic testing investigation into Subway chicken. The findings were not flattering. Subway disputed them loudly. But the story did not stay in Canada. It traveled. Australian consumers read it. They remembered it. And Subway's ingredient claims have faced scrutiny more than once since then. Inside the stores, the picture is no better. Australian franchisees have complained consistently about forced renovation costs they did not choose, royalty structures that bite hard, and a loyalty rewards program that head office sells as a traffic driver, but franchisees say eats directly into their margins. The person making your sandwich is trapped in the same system squeezing you at the register, and that register tells the clearest story of all. The footlong that was the sensible lunch on Pitt Street or Bourke Street or Queen Street in 2015 is now priced like a sit-down cafe meal. The value that built Subway's entire identity in Australia is gone. What replaced it is a private equity margin target dressed up as a sandwich. Go and check your last Subway receipt right now. Then check what the same ingredients cost at your nearest Kohl's. The numbers will do the rest. The next chain built its entire identity on being the great Australian night out. The one for birthdays, for after the footy, for any occasion that called for something a little more than fast food. Brand 5. Pizza Hut Australia. Saturday night. The smell of melted cheese and garlic bread coming out of a cardboard box. A table full of kids in party hats. The all-you-can-eat buffet that felt like the most exciting thing a 10-year-old could possibly experience. For an entire generation of Australian children, Pizza Hut was not just dinner. It was the destination. That world is largely gone now. And what replaced it tells you everything about how this industry works. Pizza Hut Australia operates under Yum Brands, the same Louisville, Kentucky corporation that owns KFC, the same corporation that owns Taco Bell. That is 3 chains on this list running under the same parent company. 3 different logos, 1 financial model, 1 set of quarterly margin targets driving decisions across all of them. The all-you-can-eat buffet was not retired because Australians stopped wanting it. It was retired because it was expensive to run. It was difficult to scale under a cost management model designed to extract maximum return from every single location. What replaced it was delivery, and delivery has its own story. Pull up what a family pizza order cost a decade ago. Then look at what it costs tonight. The numbers do not match, not even close. A family order that used to come in under $40 now clears $60 before you have even tipped the driver. And that $60 does not all go to the pizza. The delivery platform takes its cut first, then the service fee, then the surcharge. The franchisee gets what is left, and what is left is not much. That is the system, not a glitch in it, the system itself. The people making your pizza are feeling the same pressure you are feeling at checkout. Australian franchisees under the Yum and Collins Foods structure have raised concerns about supply chain lock-in for years. They are not free to source cheaper ingredients. They are not free to absorb cost increases quietly. Every margin decision flows down from head office. The franchisee passes it to the customer, and the customer pays for all of it. That is 3 separate parties taking money out of your order before the box even reaches your door. The place that hosted every childhood birthday party in the 1990s is now a delivery app listing, competing against a supermarket pizza base and a bag of Woolies mozzarella. That comparison is being made in Australian kitchens every Friday night, and the supermarket is winning. 3 Yum Brands chains. 3 versions of the same story. The next brand is different. It is Australian listed, Brisbane headquartered, and it has a worker underpayment scandal that went all the way to the Fair Work Ombudsman. Brand 6. Domino's Australia. This one was supposed to be different. Not an American giant parachuted into the Australian market. Not a multinational collecting royalties from a hemisphere away. Domino's Pizza Enterprises is listed on the Australian Securities Exchange, headquartered in Brisbane. An Australian company running an Australian operation, accountable to Australian shareholders. That was the story, and Australians believed it. Then the Fair Work Ombudsman started asking questions. What followed was one of the most significant wage theft scandals the Australian food service industry has seen. Thousands of delivery drivers across Australia underpaid across multiple years. The underpayments were not a rounding error. They were systemic. Domino's self-reported to the Fair Work Ombudsman and began a remediation process that involved repaying millions of dollars to workers who had been shortchanged while delivering pizzas to Australian homes. Think about that for a moment. The driver who brought dinner to your door on a Friday night, the one navigating traffic in the rain, getting paid less than the law required while the company collected the delivery fee, the service fee, and the platform margin on the same order. The financial pressure behind that underpayment traces directly to the franchisee model. Domino's Pizza Enterprises is one of the largest Domino's franchisees in the world, outside the United States. The master franchise structure creates a margin squeeze that flows downward. Head office takes its cut, the franchisee absorbs the pressure, and the worker at the bottom of that chain is the one who ends up underpaid. The share price tells its own story. Domino's peaked at over 160 Australian dollars per share. It has not been close to that number since. Australian retail investors who bought the story of a homegrown success watched that investment lose more than half its value as the scandals and structural problems compounded. The 30 minutes or free era built real loyalty with Australian customers. That loyalty absorbed a lot. But wage theft is a different category of breach. It is not a price complaint. It is not a quality issue. It is a values issue. And for a growing number of Australians, it is the reason they stopped ordering. Subscribe now if you want to know which brands are actually worth your money. We have got that coming up very shortly. The next two chains are the ones that will hurt most, because these are the brands Australians still defend, the ones that feel like home. Brand 7. Starbucks. Australia. Australia already said no to Starbucks once. In 2008, Starbucks closed 61 of its 84 Australian locations in a single month, the largest single market retreat in the company's history up to that point. Australians had built a genuine cafe culture, independent roasters, skilled baristas, a flat white that actually tasted like something. Starbucks walked into that market and discovered that Australians were not interested in paying a premium for something that did not match what their local cafe was already doing better. That rejection was real, and it was earned. Then Starbucks came back, quietly, under a licensed model through the Withers Group, rebuilding location by location, targeting airports, shopping centers, and high-foot traffic corridors where convenience beats quality every time. By 2026, there are hundreds of locations operating across the country again, and the problems that drove Australians away the first time have not gone anywhere. Brian Niccol took over as Starbucks Global Chief Executive Officer in September 2024. His annualized total compensation package, based on the company's own filings with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, came to approximately $97.8 million United States dollars. The median Starbucks worker globally took home roughly $14,674 United States dollars in the same period. That is a pay gap of 6,666 to 1. It was the widest chief executive to worker ratio of any company in the index of the 500 largest public companies in the United States. The Australian barista making your $8 oat milk latte is working inside that same system. Unionization activity has been documented at locations in Melbourne and Sydney. The mobile order queue that fills the counter means the customer standing in front of the barista waits while app orders go ahead. The experience that Starbucks charges a premium for is being delivered by workers whose compensation sits at the very bottom of what the enterprise generates. Pregnant women watching their caffeine intake are paying specialty prices for a product made inside a system designed around executive extraction. Young Australians who built their morning routine around this brand are starting to do the maths. The next one is the hardest, because this one actually felt like ours. Brand 8. Red Rooster. This is the one that hurts. Not because Red Rooster is the biggest chain on this list, not because it has the longest scandal or the most dramatic corporate story, but because for millions of Australians, this was the answer to every other chain on this list. When McDonald's felt too American, when KFC felt too corporate, when everything else felt like it belonged to somewhere else, Red Rooster was the one Australians pointed to and said, "That one is ours." Founded in Perth in 1972, a roast chicken chain built on Australian soil, for Australian families, by Australians. The smell of a proper roast coming out of a paper bag, chips on the side, gravy in the little container that always leaked slightly before you got home. That was not just food. For a lot of Australian seniors and families, that was a weekly ritual that cost a reasonable amount and felt like something real. Now look at who actually owns it. Red Rooster is owned by Craveable Brands. Craveable Brands also owns Oporto and Chicken Treat, and Craveable Brands is majority owned by Archer Capital, an Australian private equity firm, the same model that runs through every chain above it on this list. Royalty extraction, franchisee margin squeeze, cost management decisions made in a boardroom that has nothing to do with the family sitting in the car park eating roast chicken out of a bag. The roast chicken that fed 2 people for $12 in 2016 is a different price proposition in 2026. Australian franchisees operating under the Craveable brand structure have raised consistent concerns about supply chain lock-in and the pressure that flows down from head office to the people actually running the stores. The brand that felt like the last genuinely Australian option is running the same playbook as the multinationals it was supposed to be the alternative to. That is the full picture. 8 chains, 8 names that meant something to Australians, and one playbook running behind all of them. Go and look at what you spent across these 8 chains in the last 12 months. The number will surprise you. 8 chains, 8 names that built themselves on Australian loyalty, and one pattern running through all of them. Private equity buys the brand. Zero-based budgeting cuts every cost that does not show up as a line item on a quarterly report. The franchisee absorbs the pressure. The worker at the bottom gets squeezed. The price on the board goes up. The portion on the tray goes down. And the marketing keeps telling you that nothing has changed. That is not 8 separate stories. That is one story told 8 different ways. The chains did not fail because Australians became harder to please. They failed because the people running them stopped caring about the Australian family at the table and started caring exclusively about the return on investment for a firm based in Atlanta or Louisville or São Paulo. Australians noticed. Not all at once, not with a campaign or a hashtag. Just quietly, one family at a time, doing the maths and walking away. That silent exit is the most powerful consumer signal in the market right now, and the boardrooms are finally starting to feel it. But here is the thing. You do not have to wait until a scandal breaks to know what kind of brand you're dealing with. The signs are there before you ever open your wallet. Here is what to look for. The first thing to check is ownership, not the name above the door, the actual owner. A quick search will tell you whether the brand is privately held, private equity-backed, or publicly listed. If a private equity firm owns it, find out when they bought it. Private equity typically runs a 5 to 7 year exit cycle. Everything in that window is being managed toward a sale. That includes the quality of your food. The second thing is the franchisee relationship. Brands that treat their franchisees well tend to treat their customers well. Look for news about franchisee disputes, lawsuits, or associations formed specifically to push back against head office. When the people running the stores are fighting the people who own the brand, the customer is always caught in the middle. The third thing is the wage record. Australia has the Fair Work Ombudsman and publicly available compliance records. If a brand has a documented history of underpaying workers, that cost-cutting does not stop at the payroll. It runs through every decision the business makes, including what goes into your order. The fourth thing is the price trajectory. Pull up the menu from 5 years ago. It is usually still floating around online somewhere. Compare it to what is on the board today. A price increase that outpaces the general cost of living by a significant margin is not inflation. It is margin expansion. You are being asked to fund the gap between what the brand costs to run and what its investors expect to return. The fifth thing is the portion trend. This one is harder to document but easier to feel. If a meal that used to leave you satisfied now leaves you looking for something else, an hour later the recipe has not changed. The quantity has. Cost management in food service almost always starts with portion reduction before it touches anything the customer can easily see. 5 questions. Less than 10 minutes. They will tell you more about a brand than any marketing campaign ever will. Nobody organized the boycott you just heard about. Millions of Australians simply started asking the right questions, and when the answers did not add up, they stopped showing up. The chains counted on loyalty being unconditional. They were wrong. Every dollar you spend is a decision, a vote for the kind of food business you want in this country. Spend it with brands that pay their workers correctly, treat their franchisees fairly, and charge you a price that reflects the actual cost of good food rather than the target return of an investment firm. Send this to the mate who is still defending one of these chains. Subscribe for the next investigation. And drop a comment with the chain that lost you first. The industry is watching the numbers. Make sure the numbers say something worth hearing.